Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Paul D'Ambrosio, and I teach Chinese philosophy at East China Normal University in Shanghai, where the 四海为学 collaborative learning project is based. I want to welcome you to our 29th lecture and our 56th event. We are going to be discussing the philosophy of change in the Yijing with Professor Han Tze-ki, who's made quite a name for himself in Yijing studies. And so we're really, really happy to have him here with us today. He's a professor at Beijing Normal University Zhuhai campus. We also have Tyler Neenan from the University of Chicago, Dr. Robert Carleo from East China Normal University, and Wen Haiming from Renming University here to discuss with Professor Han. Our chair today is Deng Xiwei from East China Normal University. It has become a tradition here at 四海为学 to give younger scholars a chance to be part of high-profile academic events by inviting them to take part as chairs or discussants. So if there are any younger scholars in the audience who wish to be part of future events, please let me know. This event will be 90 minutes total and end at 10:30 a.m. Beijing time. Before getting things started and handing them over to Xiwei, I want to say a few things about the 四海为学 Collaborative Learning Academic Forum. The 四海为学 Collaborative Learning Project hopes to distinguish itself from some of the less productive conventional practices sometimes found in contemporary academia. As posted on our website, we are not interested in male peacocks, in jerks, or in any form of egoism or self-promotion. We hope to curb all types of aggressive and look at me, I'm smarter than you, or don't I know so much, and similar attitudes sometimes found in academic exchanges. We might even go so far as to say that we hope to be somewhat of a counterbalance for the negative attitudes often found in so-called blind reviews. While there is a time and a place for anonymity, or at least the appearance of anonymity, communication in academia should have just as much time and place for speaking to one another on more congenial and community-forming settings. The neologism 四海为学, which was created by Robin Wong, is a play on 四海为家, and we hope to keep this idea of 四海为家at the forefront of all of our events. The 四海为学 Collaborative Learning Project seeks to accomplish these shifts in orientation during academic exchange by encouraging productive communication, humble discussions, real questions, and responses that are truly open and honest. We hope to foster environments where people learn from and with one another. So, before introducing our chair, I want to once again thank Professor Han, Tyler Neenan, Robert Carleo, and Professor Wen Haiming for being with us here today. Our chair is Deng Xiwei. She is a PhD student in Chinese philosophy at East China Normal University, and her research interests center on the comparative study of Chinese and Western philosophy, with a focus on pre-Qin Taoism and Weijin Xuanxue, or Neo-Taoism. A focal point of her current work involves analysis of conceptual metaphors in ancient Chinese philosophical discourses, with a particular emphasis on Wang Bi's hermeneutics in his commentaries. We're very happy to have you here, Xiwei. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Paul. Hi everyone, welcome to our event today. Today, Professor Han Tze-ki will deliver a lecture titled The Philosophy of Change in the Yijing, and after the lecture, three commentators will give their remarks. So let's start. It's a great honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Professor Han Tze-ki. Han Tze-ki is professor at the Research Center for History and Culture of Beijing Normal University in Zhuhai, China. Concurrently, he is the Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at BNU and HKBU United International College. Before he relocated to Zhuhai, he taught at City University of Hong Kong, State University of New York at Geneseo, and Hanover College in Indiana. Over the last 3 decades, he wrote 4 books: The Yijing and Chinese Politics, 2005, The Allure of the Nation, 2013, Teaching the Yijing, Book of Changes with Jeffrey Redmond, 2014, and Revolution as Restoration, 2014. He edited or co-edited 6 volumes: The Politics of Historical Production in Late Qing and Republican China, 2007, Beyond the May 4th Paradigm, 2008, The Decade of the Great War, 2014, Confucianism for the Contemporary World, 2017, Cold War Cities, 2022, The Other Yijing, 2022, and The Cityscapes of Taipei, Hong Kong, and Singapore during the Cold War, forthcoming. His articles have appeared in Journal of Chinese Philosophy, Modern China, Monumentus Erica, and Zhangqiu Journal of East Asian Studies. Professor Han, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Let me show the PPT. Okay. This is my honor to be speaking with you today. I'm really impressed by these 2 terms of this lectureship, this lecture series, 四海为学. I myself is also 四海为家. That is to say, I'm still moving. I'm a global migrant labor. How about that? Put this way, migrating from place to place in the last 30-some years, and I'm still looking for my home. And in this way, this 四海为家 is also the basis for my 四海为学. I think it's fitting this way that learning, after all, it's not based in one place, one country, or one culture. And actually, learning is global, especially at this time when, with a better word, the worst of time. This is indeed important that make learning to be part of our reflection, especially critical reflections of the events that is taking place today. So today, my talk, The Philosophy of Change in the Yijing, is both a window to understand the ancient philosophy in China. But I hope that this understanding is also offered as a glimpse of hope, perhaps, to the decades that is coming in the following. In other words, it will give us the intellectual power to be encouraging, to be uplifting, to be optimistic about the future. A future that is much more global, much more connecting, not divisive. And I hope that the best of time, as Charles Dickens says, is also the best of time. The topic of today is the Yijing, the philosophy of change in the Yijing, which is also called the Zhuhai. Whatever it is, the name is the book, which is the book also connected with divination. The origin of the book is a collection of statements about the divination in the Western Zhou period. The issue of today for us is 3 questions. What is the Book of Changes, Yijing or Zhuhai? And why this book? Very interesting book, mysterious book, and sometimes called the most difficult book to read in China. Is both a manual of divination and also a philosophical text. In other words, the question that we have to face today is the relationship, the intricate relationship between divination or fortune telling, or better yet, this is the term I would like, prediction and philosophy. The reason why I want to juxtapose these 2 terms, philosophy and divination, is to try to overcome a prejudice about divination, and also trying to distinguish divination from philosophy in our today's industrial, scientific, and maybe overly rational society. And then I will try to end with this question, with the issue: if indeed divination and philosophy can be understood as an interconnected continuum in the Book of Changes, what is that philosophy of change, or the philosophy of divination in the Yijing? And I hope that this philosophy of change in the Yijing, as I mentioned before, will be our basis for our 四海为学 in the mid-21st century in facing all the crises, challenges, and perhaps disruptions. What is Yijing? Basically, there are three parts. Images, 8 trigrams and 64 hexagrams. It's called a Fuxi Yi. That is just, we don't need to worry about what Fuxi means. The key issue is that the Book of Changes begins before human language. It is a graphic, it is the images to depict the unfolding of the universe, the continuous, entangled world that change. If we think about the quantum mechanics, we understand that the particle is both a particle and wave. If that's the case, the world is intricately complex, entangled, and it also evolves constantly by itself, not by something from above us nor beyond. It's all existential, making things happen through the intricate responses to a elastic, organic system. That is what this 8 trigram and 64 hexagram is about. And these visual images, we can use semiotic to discuss it. That is a signal, it's a sign of this evolving, changing world, contextualized in written language or solidified in early Chinese language through narrative of history, especially the Shangzhou transition, the Deng Gua, He Gua, for example, these 2 hexagram in the Yijing is particularly tell us about the challenge during this momentous political changes from the Shang to the Zhou. This is called Wenwang Zhou Yi. The third one is the 10 wings, the Shi Yi, which is basically in the Eastern Zhou period, before the unification, before the Qing dynasty. And there you have these 7 pieces of writing divided into 10 segments, philosophizing both the images and the written languages, and then to compose a systematic understanding of the world based on more sophisticated philosophical language, such as yin yang, Yijing Yang Zhiwei Dao, or 大眼之术50. All these languages is to understand the unfolding of the universe organically, intricately, entangled, both in human world and also in natural world. In other words, these all three images, written languages, written text, and the philosophical treatises are combined in one based on the notion of change. This Shi Yi particularly is the one that I highlight, 四子传, or the Greek treatises, is the most philosophical ones among these 7 pieces of writing. In our conventional book, we have the judgment, 端, and images, 大象, and also 文言, incorporated into the 64 hexagrams. And Zhuhai wants us to separate them. And I think I agree with Zhuhai. It's important to separate the core text, the images, and the historical writing from these 10 wings. Nevertheless, we have to deal with our conventional text. But the key issue is that the 系辞 is the one that drives the entire philosophical, the core text into a superb philosophical system. 一阴阳之谓道. And in that way, yin yang become the core issues of the Book of Changes. We have discussion about archaeologists, whether the yin yang gua is just the Yijing. There's also Su Zi Gua, which is predated Zhou period. Nevertheless, regardless of these changes, yin yang became this kind of the yin and yang coexist and also reproduce each other. And later on in the Wuxin, become this key issue in the Yijing to discuss about this unfolding of this entangled world. I use the word entanglement very often in this lecture because I want to highlight the philosophy of change in the Yijing is the same as, if I may, with the quantum mechanics that we're discussing today. The principles of uncertainty, entanglement, and then most importantly, superposition. These 3 concepts in the quantum mechanics, actually, to me, is analogous with the 一阴阳之谓道. Okay, this is for the for the general audience, it is common sense. Yin yang, the trigrams, is represented into the yin and yang, straight line and broken line. The key issue is that it's not that you have all yin or yang. 乾坤it's not the right thing. It's all the 对离真, suan, kan, and gen. That is, you have the kind of intermixed in the yin and yang, just like a particle can be wave, and a wave can be particle all at the same time. So this is the whole universe that you is me, I am you. Even though we may have the different, now, for example, we are now in this physical space of the Zoom, but we are also divided in time, separate in time. In our physical time and space, we're different, but now we are connected, entangled, how about that? Entangled through these platforms of Zoom. And that is what this 8 trigrams is about. Regardless of these time-space differences, we are entangled. And that is the whole key issues in the 1930 and 40 in the quantum mechanics, to show that regardless of time-space differences, things are connected. This 6 trigram becomes, okay, you have a Santangua, Hautangua, whatever it may be, is to show this entanglement could be dynamic, could be intuitive, and also more importantly, we have no way to predict how it goes. We can see a pattern, 春夏秋冬, 4 seasons, or the time, 24-hour clock, 20 hours in a day. We can do that. But this is only an artificial, conventional human making system. The real world doesn't work that way. The real world actually always moving, changing, unpredictably. It is the basic principles of the uncertainty in the quantum mechanics. What differ the book of changes from the physicists of the quantum mechanics is this 10D Ren. In other words, the physicists discuss about the physical world and then try to use experiment to prove the physical world. The Yijing author, okay, from the images to the historical writing to the philosophical treatises, is to discuss, I'm using the Han scholar terminology, 天人之学, is to discuss about this entanglement is not only in the natural world. This entanglement is between the natural world and the human world and all the other ecological systems. This is the holistic systems that is organically and dynamically intertangled that make the world happen. So understanding the physical world is only one thing. We have to see also the importance of the impact of the physical world to the social world and then to the psychological world. And that's Carl Jung's discovery in the Yijing. The Yijing is not just about predicting the future. It's also predicting our own inner self, our entangled soul that cannot be uncovered. Because we can, in other words, we don't even know who we are. You follow Carl Jung. The unconscious and subconscious sometimes dictate more our conscious time, our conscious self. Now they have 64 hexagram in a square, but ultimately the 64 hexagram, there's a combining 2 trigram into 1 is to magnify the entangled world, to make it more visually dynamic, visually complicated, such that we understand that we don't know what is going on, but we know what's happening around us through these relationships of yin and yang, relationship between people outside us and with us, or understanding our subconscious world, our conscious self, and the conscious self. Qiankun, just to put this in this way, the reading of the hexagram is from the bottom to the top. First line, second line, third line. This is 1 trigram. And then you have the division, the inner trigram and outer trigram. If you read it psychologically, okay, well, there are many ways to read the hexagram. This is our inner world within us, our ego, if you will. This is our external world. You can read it this way. Or you can read it in the political way, okay? 内心外黄, this is our inner world as a person, this outer world as a public person. But this is only one way to do so. Sorry about that. There's also another way of putting the 天地人 back in here. Okay, the lower two line, D, the middle two line, 人. This top line, 天. Wang Bi, one of the most creative thinker in the Xuanxue period, who actually revolutionized the understanding of the book of changes, put the emphasis on the very interesting 人, third and fourth. For him, the third and fourth lines are important is that this 3 line and 4 line, 上不到天 cannot go, it's on the way to the top, to the heaven. 上不到天 is go down to the earth. Either way, it's in entanglement. It's entangled to the natural world, up, and then also to the natural world, down. But yet, 上不到天, we don't reach the heavens, we don't reach the earth. We're in between. We are in the midst. We are in the bind that we know who we are. At the same time, we are torn between two sides. So third and fourth line in all hexagram are dangerous, but at the same time, it's also the most creative. It is where you are that you can reach the moon, if you will, using colloquial English. You also reach the earth, if you can. And it is in this entanglement, then you become who you are by struggling. So in other words, the whole book of changes, all from the beginning, is not about a stable life. It's not about we have reached heaven and then be happy forever. Actually, by contrast, the book of changes is about hope in a hopeless situation, life in a struggling against obstacles and adversity. 上不到天, and this is who we are. But it is in this kind of a way we make the world beautiful, make the world more organically developing, because we are unsettled. We add even more energy into an evolving world. The same for the quant. This is both a pair. You have the third hexagram is about moving up. I use a picture to show that the zhenggua at the bottom is about thunder, the power of the earth. The shui, the kan at the top. You can see with this picture, this imaginations of Tuan is the beginning of life, beginning of your career. When I moved from Hong Kong in 2021 to Zhuhai 4 years ago, this is my hexagram. I knew it. This is the beginning of your life. And I'm now moving on to another hexagram. But yet, this Tuan is guiding me, because I'm moving from one side of the Pearl River to the other side of Pearl River. It's a new beginning. It's crossing a big river. It's a divided line. When you cross it, you create yourself. In other words, your obstacle in Hong Kong can be forgotten. Now you have a new world in Zhuhai. Go for it. And this is what Tuan means. Meng, as a teacher myself, this is the hexagram that guide me in all my classroom. There's a shui at the bottom. There's a mountain at the top. Water and mountain. Okay, if you put it in another way, 水在上, you have a shui at the top, sun at the different. It's a different story. Meng is that the water is bursting, moving, growing, moving everywhere. You have to be channeled. The sun is important in this way. The sun is, even though it's not moving, but it provides the direction for the water. The best way to do it is to see the painting, the monumental painting of the Song Dynasty, how the river at the bottom go up to the top of the mountain and come back down. And then the mists at the top of the mountain become the source of the pond in the bottom. And there's this tiny man in there. Okay, this 天人之学, this connection between the natural realm and the human realm is organical, up and down, renewal. And that is how this whole hexagram about Deng is actually quadrant, upside down or downside up. You can imagine that the De is the quadrant, the Deng, upside down. The Deng is the quadrant, We're in the proper position. But the Deng and Ge as a index is a continuum. Is that is from Ge 到 Deng, from Deng 到 Ge. Deng Ge doesn't mean revolution in our sense of 革命, even though 革命is in the 革卦. It's not in the 革命 in the sense of the modern sense of totally revolutionize a system. It's not. It's through the changes you make a system better. It's a renewal. But the more you renew, problem come back again. So this is not that a one-time shot. You do it and then everything will be happy and forever peaceful, forever peaceful. It is actually a continuum. You have to 革 and Deng and 革 all the time. And that is how this whole thing at the end, the Tze-ki Weiji 63 on this side, and Weiji on the 64. Tze-ki is the best hexagram for the Han scholar. All the hexagrams have to go to reach Tze-ki, go for it. But Yijing cannot finish with Tze-ki. Yijing have to be Weiji, the last hexagram, because crossing river is the key theme of the Book of Changes. You reach to the other side of the river, Tze-ki, meaning that also another river is ahead of you. And in that way, nobody can reach their destiny. Everybody in the midst, 四海为家, 四海为学, in the midst of reaching that goal. Even when you die, you won't get your destination. At the same time, in the quantum physics, death is the beginning of a new life. Death release another energy. So in the way, Tze-ki Weiji is an important sense of making this a circle, a constant renewal of the 64 hexagrams. And that is the basis for the 10 ring, especially. Okay, this is what this is about. Divination. Okay, you can use yarrow stocks, you can use the coins, you can use the tarot cards, you can use the app of your phone, okay, to do all these divinations. The key issue is that divination is to, if you use the language of the quantum mechanics, is to see a glimpse of the superposition. All the things come together. The divination, if you do it the right way, you have to calm your mind down. You have to ask the right question. You cannot say just for the sake of the convenience that how much I will get from investing in stock now when the Trump is putting upon the tariff in everywhere. This is not the divination. Divination is that when you're at the crossroads, when you're at the crisis, you have a couple of alternatives in front of you. Then you do divination. Which one you go, and what are the costs and benefits of doing so? The divination is unveiled and unveil what is the constant change. Everything is changing. The divination of today doesn't mean you get a one hexagram, doesn't mean that the same hexagram can apply to tomorrow. In other words, the divination is to immerse you. If you look at Carl Jung's understanding, is to immerse you in the synchronicity of life, in the complexity, the ongoing and tangled life that's forever changing. He also give you a sense of finitude. We don't know who we are. We only know partly, at most partially of myself. And we only understand it because even though we know this party, we also know that this party also affected by other parts, the serendipity, the uncertainty, and unpredictabilities of life. At the same time, this is the source of our energy. We have Zhuhai, fear and worry. Who am I? That is the basic argument that in Shakespeare, Hamlet, to be or not to be. Okay. Finally, this is the engine. In a way, that's the reason why the book of Changes, even though you have multi-layered and multifaceted, they all come down to one argument: human agency. I do the best I can to deal with the circumstances around me, and by doing so, I will partially, at least a baby step, in changing around the surrounding around me, and thereby through the butterfly effect, I change the whole world. And that is what this whole issue that Carl Jung is so deeply interested in the hexagrams. as if they are the mandolin. Because this is the hexagram that tell us to be engaged in the world, and also more importantly, first and foremost, engage in ourselves. So this part-whole relationship is the key issues in the Book of Changes. I'll just give another example, then I'll end my talk today using a hexagram. Okay, this is you all know that, especially read Jin Yong the martial arts 12人英雄传，潜龙勿用，先龙在田，君子终于前前，或跃在渊，飞龙在天，亢龙有悔。This is 6 line parallel. I use in the middle, separate the lower 前 trigram and the upper 前 trigram. This is actually a good example because I use it in my class all the time. College students, even though they're 18 to 21, understand it because it tell them about the 4 years in college. And for me, crossing the river from one side of Pearl River, Hong Kong to Zhuhai is also the same thing too. I became 4 years ago. I was hidden dragon, 潜龙不用. And then after a year or so, 先龙在田. Okay. Now, in many times, shall I remain in Zhuhai or should I go somewhere else? That is the 3 and 4, live or not live. And then hopefully today, this talk, I'm flying dragon, okay, 飞龙在天, hopefully not like 亢龙有悔. In other words, the whole energy, this is the Yijing about, and I usually use the metaphor of Hamlet, and sometimes even Greek, the tragedy to discuss this 5th and 6th line, is that hubris. Human beings may be too arrogant or too egotistic, so much so that they forget they're limited, they're finitude. They think they know who they are. They think they know they can command the world, which is an illusion. And I think you can go back all the way to Antiquity and all the Greek tragedy to show that you may think you know the world and you think that you're the master of the world. Actually, you are the foolish man of that world. And that is the whole lesson. You will read the Greek tragic opera, the tragic drama, everything tell you that. Even the ending of Hamlet tell you that too. So this is not something that we don't know. But it is something that we try to avoid. When you are flying high in heaven, 飞龙在天, is the beginning of the decline, 亢龙有悔. But 亢龙有悔 is not bad if you really know that you commit mistakes by being overly egotistic. You go back to 潜龙勿用, start again. This is my life, 四海为家, and also in everywhere I fly and come down, fly and come down again many times. Okay. All right, this is I hope I can end this way. The Book of Changes, even with image, which this multimedia depictions of idea is basically about this Yijing moment. We don't have to be Yijing moment every day. If you go to a restaurant and ask for a menu and then order food, it's not Yijing moment. The Yijing moment must be your career change, or your problem in your family, or you are reaching a key decision in your life to be and not to be. These days, the senior are now asking me about advice for going abroad or staying in China, or which school they go in UK and United States. That is the Yijing moment for them. In that way, the key point is that one is you must feel an intense fear. 忧患. You are. How about if you go to a child clinics, the fear is actually not fearful. It's anxiety. That is to say, the invisible pending danger that you foresee, and yet hasn't arrived. But from fear, you reach to anxiety. The fear is the beginning. Is the surface expressions of the deep anxiety that that is hidden in you. So with this fear and anxiety, you know that you are reaching upon a time that you want to understand the superposition, where you are why you are so overlapped, why things are so complicated, why things are so seemingly serendipitous. It's not. It's not serendipitous. It's moving. We just do not understand it. Then you have to chart. You have to make a decision about where to go, and that is the Yijing wound. Now you understand that we are actually intricately superpositioned, and at the same time, because of the entanglement, we entangled it with our family, we entangled it with the society around us, we entangled it with the country that we're living in, we entangled it with the region that we are associated with. We are entangled with all the human beings around the world. We are entangled with the ecological system that is even beyond human control. And that is, now we understand that we are only have very limited option and limited power. But yet, we must do something, and that is the reaching of the self-understanding. We know we are limited in power, and yet what we do will have, I'm sure, will have a consequence and impact upon people around us through butterfly effect. It's not now. It may be 10 years down the road. It may be 30 years down the road. It may be even after life, after death. That is the vision that you have. I do something today, not because I will gain something tomorrow. It's not. It's that you are living responsibly and responsively in the entangled world. And you understand that your movement will have an entanglement with something outside, wherever they may be. And that is, I end with these two ways. One is that we have to see the world as a organic, dynamic, evolving, self-initiated, and self-driven huge system, like this wave. And that's Weiji and Tze-ki, okay, crossing the river, completed or not, or in the midst of crossing, is exactly discuss this issue. We are in the part of the wave, but yet we are a drop of the water in the ocean. But this drop of the water in the ocean is also make the ocean an ocean. So that is a paradoxical understanding of the book of changes, that the decision making, even though it look like a foolish decision, have an impact. So in other words, a failure is not failure. Well, we in English we have a good way to say it. It's a blessing in disguise. In other way, in the book of changes, there's no success and failure. Everything must be impactful. They will be somewhere somehow. Even though you lose millions of dollars today in your stock market or your house, that also change. Economically speaking, someone gained. So if you think in those holistic terms, a drop in an ocean is both limited and powerful, both success and failure. There's no distinction between whether someone is successful and someone is a failure. We are part of a holistic system. And then in the end, if you see in this way, then you understand the ripple effect or the butterfly effect. What we are discussing today will have an impact in someone in Brazil, for example. I don't know. You don't know, but it may. Well, you put it in Xiaohongshu, it may be, I don't know, millions of people watching. Then it's this thing that I hope I end with this line. Life is an ever-changing, entangled network. And this line actually is not my line. If you read all the physicists, especially the recent Nobel winners of physics who discuss quantum mechanics, this is what we are doing. The microcosmic world is something we don't see, but this microcosmic world actually is affecting us in this macrocosmic world. The quantum mechanics someday will link up with the conventional physics. In that way, the book of changes will be brilliant because we have this philosophy of change in the book of changes already thousands of years ago. We are not saying that the authors of the book of changes is physicists, but they see what the quantum mechanic physicists see now. And then hopefully, 四海为家 and 四海为学. Okay, well, we'll see again somewhere, somehow in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insightful lecture. And
So
we are fortunate.
Sharing? Zhuhai?
Yeah. Basically. Okay. We are fortunate to have three commentators with us today. And now I'm happy to welcome our first commentator, Tyler Neenan. Tyler Neenan is a PhD candidate at the University of Chicago Divinity School. His primary research tracks the conceptual inheritance of natively Chinese and especially Taoist figures of paradoxical non-duality in Chinese Mahayamaka Buddhism. His dissertation in progress aims to put flesh on a strange body with no place in the traditional Mahayana Trikaya schemata, which becomes a point of fierce doctrinal contention between the Northern Song Tiantai thinker Siming Zhili and his once fiercely loyal turned renegade disciple Jingjue Renyue. In addition to the above, Tyler tracks divergent figures of limitation, lack, and excess, transcendence, and unconditionality through heterogeneous fields spanning from ancient to modern, east to west, from the Yijing to psychoanalytically informed first philosophy. And Tyler, you are welcome to present your remarks.
Great, thank you so much, Han Lao Shi. What a wonderful lecture. I'm so excited to have a chance to ask you some questions about it. So I spent the last couple of days with the book and have a question that's aimed in the direction of the Tze-ki dyad that concludes the series of 64. And I'm wondering now. I'm going to quote a few moments from your book that I kind of want to be in the background for my question here. You tell us that change being creative does not obey any external order, nor does it concentrate on any direction or form any substance that is not subject to change. You tell us elsewhere, when the activity and transformation continue, the maintenance of creativity, of reality amidst change and transformation requires yin-yang complementarity, not just their opposition. You tell us that the process of change is therefore a process of harmonization related, and here's where my question arises, related to an ideal state of harmony as the end state that is, of course, another inception for creativity. So the process of change is a process of harmonization related to this ideal state of harmony. A little bit later on, you tell us that, so speaking of the idea of harmonization in chapter 7 on this hierarchical conception of time, that opposing forces or elements are coalesced to form novel unities and structures in which opposing forces or elements become reciprocally supportive and mutually complementary. You say a little bit later on, why does the opposition of the yin and the yang suggest more the concept of harmony than that of conflict? The reason is not hard to find. You tell us the opposition of the yin and the yang is always grounded in the unity of the Tao and is always contained in the framework of the unity of the Tao. The opposition exhibits the unity of the differentia more than their tension and mutual aversion. The opposition of the yin and the yang, therefore, can be said to be a cause of harmony, attraction, and stimulation, rather than conflict and struggle. And so I'm wondering now, especially in light of what seems to be an insistent spirit just in your lecture style, that somehow every tension, every antagonism is, as you say, a blessing in disguise, right? That last little bit that you quoted there for us, that 是事如其句句心, life is an ever-changing, entangled network, that somehow it's the very entanglements of life that are the cause of our satisfaction in the end. So all of this is related now to something I think is interestingly a whack in terms of this idea. So I mean, it seems like we're thinking of harmony and opposition as two different things. Either it's harmony or it's opposition. And so I'm wondering here, when we look at this closing dyad in which the changes come to an end, could we not perhaps think of a different kind of an ending, right? And of course, you know, the end and the beginning somehow co-align here, right? We get to the end of the series of 64, and it can only just be Shangshang, right? That is the only end to be found. Shangshang Zhuhai. So there's a theorist I quite like, who I'm sorry, I guess this is the second Saturday in a row that I've bombarded Professor D'Ambrosio with some Slovenian theory that nobody asked for. But this thinker, her name is Alenka Zupančič, she has the idea of a comic happy ending, which is not a sudden reversal of a previous misfortune or unhappiness, but rather an ending which exacts a joyful satisfaction from the very deadlocks, blockades, failures, misencounters, miscalculations, misplacements, misfirings, misjudgments. So, I mean, we could look here. You know, there's a bit in the Sichuan that says, 魏者安其魏节，亡者保其存节，乱者有其治节。是故君子安而不忘危，存而不忘亡，治而不忘乱。But I think that perhaps we might look at the line judgments, at something that's very strange in the line judgments on this last dyad, in the crossing of the river between Yijing and Weiji, right? Which are, of course, the very same triad, only just reversed, right? We'd have, in the one case, a kan on the bottom and a ho on top, and in the other case, a ho on the bottom and a kan on top. Right, so the judgment on the Jiji reads that 出吉 中乱. So at first, fortune prevails, and then in the end, there is chaos. But strangely here, the effective resonance of these two poles are almost like reversed, crossed. Common sense would dictate that the auspicious finality of Jiji, which means you've gotten to the end, right? Be taken as a cause for rejoicing, and conversely, that the calamity of Weiji, of not yet having come to completion, right, be taken as a cause for despair. But hilariously, the case is just the reverse, right? We have the Jiji that's the downer, as we say in English, and Weiji that's almost like an overdose of upper. So very quickly, a little analysis of these two hexagrams here. So basically, Jiji is like everything is in exactly the right place, right? So we have three unbroken yang lines. Each one comes to rest in the three prototypical yang positions, the 1, the 3, and the 5. And then the two center spots, the 2 and the 5, within the two constitutive trigrams, the li, the fire beneath, and the kan, the abyss above, are occupied by a yin on the bottom and a yang on top, right? So at every level, the Jiji is exactly as it should be, right? And yet, if we look at the line judgments, the affective resonance seems to be exactly the opposite, right? We're driving a cart, our wheel falls off, right? Our tail weirdly is like dripping in the water behind us. A maiden loses her hair. Our boat is halfway sunk, and yet we nevertheless trudge forward into this, into the fifth line, into the fifth yang. And there we're told, very strange. I mean, I don't really know quite what to make of this line. I wonder if you have options. So we get the line judgment on the fifth yang in the Jiji. 东邻傻牛，不如西邻之月季，实受其福. So something like the neighbor in the east slaughters the ox, but this falls short of the yue sacrifice of the neighbor in the west, which really provides one with blessings, right? So I don't know. It seems like we're being beckoned forward, onwards into the Weiji, right? So I mean, of course, these are two sort of like, you know, it's like a dyad in the force, right? These two hexagrams. So we're sort of impelled forward into the Weiji now. Okay, so everything is out of whack. Everything that was right in the case of Jiji is for exactly the same reason wrong in the case of the Weiji, right? We have three broken yin lines awkwardly stationed in the prototypical yang positions, and we have three unbroken yang lines aligned with the three prototypical yin positions. The two center spots, in the abyss beneath and the fire now on top, are again occupied by flagrant misfits with a yang on the bottom and a yin on top. There isn't a single dimension of the geometry of this hexagram that isn't not how it should be. And yet there is an oblique harmony that stands to be one. So all of this gets back to my original question. It seems like we're conceiving, or I don't know, and this is a question that I'm looking to pose to you now. It seems like we're saying that there are two possible dialectics, right? You speak in chapter 7 of a dialectic of opposition and conflict, and in a dialectic of harmony that nevertheless doesn't work in the same way that maybe, you know, in which we imagine that all antagonism is sort of resolved away and swept up into the all-encompassing maw of absolute spirit or something. All of these kind of toxic figures of teleology that are implicit to other forms of more sort of purpose-driven teleologies. So in the same way that with the Tze-ki, everything is a disaster, we're like you know, driving a half-broken vehicle through a field of demons. Everything is wonderful and joyous in the case of the Weiji triad, the hexagram. So if we look there, we're sort of like we're swept up into fits of laughter, and a baby is babbling, you know, like a baby that doesn't even know what it's saying, and it's just everything is, you know, falling out of its mouth. So even though there's no stable foothold out above or beyond this out of whack of the Weiji triad, things have never looked worse in terms of where things are. And yet, nevertheless, it seems that we secure this most unlikely and fortuitous triumph. So we get on the fifth line judgment, constant, auspicious, free of regret. Yeah, 君子之光有福及. So yeah, like the noble one, the noble Junzi's radiance, it is what inspires confidence. Now that's auspicious. So my is kind of like could we think perhaps that this last dyad of hexagrams presents a way to think of these two conflicting dialectics, right? You're thinking of the dialectic of conflict and opposition in conflict and opposition to the dialectic of harmony. Could we possibly think that almost like as a limit case here, this dyad of two hexagrams gives us a way to think, and again, along the lines of, I'm suggesting like a comic ending, right? That precisely this fifth line in the Weiji, you know, it thrives on things that do not add up. It thrives on these discrepancies as a source of pleasure rather than or sort of out of whackness of things. Rather, it seems to derive its satisfaction from misfortune and calamity. So yeah, I guess I don't know how long I've been speaking for, but it's probably been about 5 minutes. I'm guessing. I don't know if somebody will hold up a little card to me, but maybe I'll stop there for now. And I think that's enough to chew on for the moment. Again, wanted to say thank you for a wonderful, exciting talk. And I look forward to hearing what everyone else has to say as well.
Should I respond now or wait?
Yeah, you can respond there.
Okay, how about that? It's a very good, it's very challenging and thought-provoking question. Is this two dialectics, the dialectic of oppositions and the dialectic of harmony? And I think the question is, how do I see these two dialectics? Do I see them as coexistent but not? I think the question is that there are two dialectics in these two hexagrams. And also they implied a connection because of okay, just for Wang Bi, he see hexagrams usually in individual case, one by one, but in exceptions, there are a couple of them. Deng Ge, you see that it's a pair. You know the Pi Ji Tai Lai, so Pi Tai is a pair. And also very interesting, and to answer the question, to answer your question, is that we see the Jiji Weiji as a pair in the sense that it can be a cosmic happy ending in the Jiji, but that cosmic ending also is the beginning of we can say a cosmic happy entanglement, and the entanglement will eventually sometime in a very short moment, will be also a comic happy ending. So in other words, this dialectics of opposition and dialectics of harmony, or a comic happy ending, and a comic happy entanglement, actually is not separate. They are they are separate maybe in terms of the temporal and spatial sense, but not in terms of the development. There's each one go to the other. Temporarily, you may reach a comic happy ending, but that also unleash anxiety and fear that lead to immediately a cosmic happy entanglement. And then by the same token, a comic happy entanglement, like in Weiji, also lay down the foundation for the comic happy ending. This is what when we talk about the Weiji, actually, after you finish reading the Weiji, you have to read the Jiji, and then vice versa. And then 否极泰来, Pi and Tai is the same. Ge and Ding also the same. Qian Kun also the same. So in other words, I think the whole issue is back to what you said, the Shen Shen Zhi Wei Yi. The issue is not to separate one dialectics from the other dialectics. We have all dialectics all the time. It's to see these dialectics as an ongoing process, a driving force for us to engage and immerse in the complicated and tangled world. Shen Shen Zhi Wei Yi, to create and recreate. And again, that is what Yi means, the change. That is to say that, back to what I said, this the metaphor of the ocean and the drop in the ocean, that is our engagement in the environments and circumstances around us, is what makes the life, what makes the world going on. Life, L-I-F-E, 生命 is about that, is to create and recreate. You may be down today, but you may up tomorrow. You're up tomorrow, you're down again. So this is the circle. Okay, you may say it's a vicious circle, but I would say it's not. It's a continuum in the sense of the quantum mechanics. It's this kind of wave particle binary. Or you can say it is a binary of the dialectics of opposition and the dialectic of harmony that make life an ongoing, creative, and happy enterprise. I think I would answer the question in this way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And our second commentator is Dr. Robert Carleo. Robert, better known as Bobby Carleo, has an abiding interest in the history of Confucian thought and its importance today. He has taught philosophy at East China Normal University, Wesleyan University, Brooke College of the City University of New York, and Merrimack College. He has also edited and translated The Humanist Ethics of Zhuhai, 2023, co-edited with Professor Huang Yong, Confucian Political Philosophy, Dialogues in the State of the Field, 2021, and co-edited with Professor Liu Liangjian, a special issue of the journal Contemporary Chinese Thought on Yang Guorong's Philosophy of Affairs, 2021. His translation of Li Zehou's The Origins of Chinese Thought was named Choice Outstanding Academic Title of 2019, and his recent book, Human Liberality, A Confucian Proposal 2024, argues that Confucians and the rest of the world should think about values like freedom and equality from a perspective of empathic care. And now I give the floor to Dr. Robert.
Thank you so much, Xiwei, and thank you to Paul D'Ambrosio also for inviting me and including me, and especially, of course, to Professor Han for that wonderful and engaging lecture, which covered, I think, so many really fascinating kind of implications that we get from the Yijing throughout history. So I guess like Tyler, I also have had kind of the opportunity to look more closely at your work, which I've actually was kind of thrilled to be involved here because I've read your work for some years now, and I've taught it even a few times, but we've never crossed paths, right? So I was very happy to have a chance to kind of see you, as so to speak, a way of meeting, and kind of a further blessing was this opportunity to dig more closely, particularly into your work on the Yijing, especially your fantastic book. So your book in particular, this the Yijing in Chinese politics, right? But also other book chapters that I was looking at does a wonderful job of kind of tracing so many different interpretations of the Yijing throughout history, right? And there really do seem to be kind of radically different applications of it that form like not only like a fascinating and fantastic intellectual history of interpretations of this book, but also many different kind of important perspectives that we can draw out of it, both practical uses of these ideas and the text, as well as kind of maybe really deep and penetrating philosophical debates, such as between kind of the received kind of canonized texts that they had in the early Song with Kongyingda, right? And these perspectives derived from Wang Bi, and then kind of the different interpretations that these kind of proto-Dao Sui or Dao Sui philosophers had of the text, right? And then into modernity, right? You trace kind of progressive or almost evolutionary interpretations that some of these modern Confucian thinkers try to stretch the text into in a way to kind of make sense of their world, which is a very different set of intellectual and practical challenges, right? And looking back at the Han, you have this kind of more divinatory kind of use of it in terms of predicting the future and drawing courses of action out of it. And you seem to talk about kind of all of these today, right? You covered at least many of these kind of different uses of the text. And so I wanted to raise a very pointed question that is probably kind of the main theme of your talk, just to push you on that main theme, which is what would you say kind of the main thing the text offers us today is, right? If we look throughout history, it has had all these different predominant uses and these different philosophers arguing about how we should interpret and apply these ideas, right? You really have this case of Renzhi Jianren, right? And if we take that kind of seriously, then I think another implication of it is that today, like what should we see in the text? What would you advise, so to speak, especially if you're rejecting this kind of I guess I grew up in the 1990s, right? And that was my first exposure to this text, which I saw in bookstores and, in the Boston area, right? Where I was a kid. And it was the Book of Wisdom, right? It was this globalization of these ideas that you seem to be very happy that at least academics have moved past, right? And so if that kind of globalized modern Book of Wisdom approach is no longer great, like how would you like to see the text kind of speak to us predominantly today? And I think also it's worth just quickly mentioning there do seem to be tensions in some of the different uses of the text, right? And so we might want to either reject some or overcome these tensions in some ways, right? So for example, just to give an easy one, kind of the quest for control and knowledge that the kind of divinatory aspect of it is, right? If we can understand the series of changes, then we can understand how things are likely to unfold, and that is empowering, right? That's a source of knowledge that can guide us, and it can lead us to flourishing, right? But then you also highlight this kind of acceptance of our finitude, a reconciliation. It's a philosophy of kind of coping with difficulty that is kind of unending, right? Even the greatest success is then followed by a reversion to utter tension. So those seem to be like kind of two very different philosophies that are very much at odds with one another that we could draw out of the text. But maybe not, right? Maybe there is power in understanding that we're finite, right? Maybe there is that creativity that you point us to. And I think there are also like many further sets of kind of philosophical insights that could inform our life that are different from and might be in further tension, especially with the superposition and entanglement that you talk about. And so having kind of the very many possibilities to choose from that we can recognize, or the very limited options, both of which seem to kind of come from these ideas that you're nicely kind of outlining and interpreting from the text. So that's my main question. And then I wanted to add one more small question that is in some ways linked to it. But you talk about how we should really apply these ideas mainly to an Yijing moment, to a time of crisis, to a challenge, right? And that's what this is meant to talk to. But I wanted to ask also kind of why not draw out a message of kind of constant vigilance, right? If the change is continuous and unending, why not be like, why not apply it so that we have kind of continuous awareness to the contingencies of our situation and how things might change and unfold, and there be like kind of more careful in how we live, because we know that even if the way that we're doing things now is working, it might not work in the future. Even if our presumptions seem correct now, they might not be applicable, right? Even our position is going to change, and our success is probably going to have kind of shifting ground underneath it, right? So that would suggest maybe a kind of day-to-day application rather than kind of this big moment application. And do you have concerns, or are there reasons why you're pushing us away from that interpretation? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I think we have you give me 4 questions, and these 4 questions can be actually, it would take me maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the course to discuss them. Okay, I'll rephrase your 4 questions in this way, because your 4 questions in terms of the nature and also the content. Perhaps the first one is, how do I deal with the different uses of the Book of Changes over time? That is to me, how do I understand the commentary traditions of the Book of Changes? Number one. And then how do I evaluate the Book of Wisdom approach that Richard Wilhelm developed, the Wilhelm Bain translations, also with Carl Jung. And then number 3 is how do we deal with how we use the Yijing today in facing the challenge of our contemporary issues? And what is that? So what is that? How do we see the Yijing moment? Is it a one moment, or it is a daily a guidance and also a observation about changes? Can I frame it this 4 ways, one by one, from the overall 1,000 years of commentary tradition to the 1960s, the Book of Wisdom approach, and then to us today, how do we use the Book of Changes, particularly how do we understand the Yijing moment? Could I kind of frame it this way to make, because it's a very demanding question. I think you are very. I wish we can talk more. You are very, I would say, very deeply thoughtful. And even though you say this question, each one can be one semester course on the Yijing. Number one, from my career, from my first book all the way until today, including I just finished the Tao Companion to the Book of Changes, is about the different voices in the commentaries of the Book of Changes. The Book of Changes, in terms of text, is sealed, is packed in 135 BCE, Hanwudi. So the Zhuhai become Yijing, the classical Book of Changes, and then we have a clear textual body. From Ma Wangdui, we know that even in Ma Wangdui, there's already different texts around the same time. So Hanwudi is different from even the sequence of the hexagrams is different. But it doesn't mean the Book of Changes stop growing. It continued to grow and prosper through another channel, is by commentaries. And that's exactly what Robert asked me. There's so many different schools. Okay, from Han to Xuanxue, and then to Tang, and then Song, and especially Yuanming Qing. Okay, even in the New Confucian tradition, Chen Zhu Xuepai and Lu Wang Xuepai, they have different understanding of the Book of Changes. And it's Qing is even it go back to the Han, and then now in the modern time, Yijing becomes quote unquote especially after the Gujiang, is to return back to the Western Zhou period through archaeology. And this is the Zhou study today basically is an archaeological study rather than the philosophical study. So in other words, this long traditions or voices, how about that, this different voices and colors of the Book of Changes, they are sometimes opposite. For example, the Wang Bi in many ways break away from the Han period, but then it was resuscitated in a change. So now you have this kind of opposite and then harmonize later on. So I think this question you raise is fundamental questions. How do we see these different voices, colors of the rainbow we want? How do we see this? I think the best way to do in my own study is as a student of hermeneutics, is to see this commentary as a fusion of 3 different dimensions: the text itself, and then the reader, and then the reader and text within time. In other words, we read these different voices of the Yijings contextually. They are not, they may be opposite, they may be even contradicting each other, but they're not contradicting to the time. In other words, when time change, the book of changes, and I think that is the key issue that we can discuss. We can at least accept these different voices as similar issue, who try to use the calling. You want the calling. I'm using hermeneutics and the calling of the book of changes to respond to the challenges of their times, not our times. We have our time. I will come to that later. So in that way, if you see this way, these differences are not. They're differences only in terms of how the books evoke thinking among readers in their own time. Then in that way you can see the differences, and not differences, but it's a variety of the same theme, and the theme is change. That is to say that we are living in a changing world because it's entangled, and thereby we have to do actions in order to make our life better, in the sense of engaging in this organically entangled world. If that thing is the same throughout time, but it has different issue at different time. Okay, that's number one. And number two, if that's the case, Wilhelm translation, okay, that is published by in the 50s, but become a printing miracle in 1967 on to mid-70s, is one form of this kind of a cover responding to the time. In other words, we have to study why the book of changes. William Maguire have an article, book of the Wilhelm translation became a printing phenomenon. It came because of its own time, such as the post-Second World War U.S. economy, the nuclear war fear. Especially in the 50s and 60s, after the assassinations of Kennedy and also Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement, the counterculture movement, the student protest, all these, and then hippies, Peter, Paul, and Mary, all these songs, and Don't Joan By, and more important is Bob Dylan identifying book of changes in the Wilhelm translation as being who. So this is the background for this book of change, the book of wisdom approach. And Carl Jung's forward is beautifully make it to be universal. Okay, how do we say that? In terms of the time, it makes sense. Whether it makes sense now is a different story, because the book of wisdom approach have one fundamental, have one assumption, that if this book come from China, and it is also exemplifying the Chinese wisdom. In Carl Jung's term, exemplifying the Chinese mind. This is heavily reductionistic, it's simplistic from our today perspective, because we know China is not one, is a country of 1.4 million people. So how can you be one? How can you be one wisdom, one Chinese mind? So in that way, it's outdated. But yet, there's something still continue relevant, like the philosophy of change that Richard Wilhelm discussed in the introduction. And Carl Jung's discussion of urging us to see the hexagram as somewhat like a visual images of our inner soul. That can be an important issue for us, especially with Richard Wilhelm, Carrie Baines, and also Carl Jung, emphasizing they came along one argument is that we have to search for. I'm using the title of Carl Jung's book. Is the modern man in search of a soul? That is something that we can still use today. So in other words, we have treated book of wisdom approach somewhat critically. On the one hand, we understand its own time, thereby it has its own limitations. At the same time, we also appreciate there's something universal, like relevant to us, because we are still a modern man in search of a soul. Especially the technological industrial economy have made us even more bifurcated, alienated, or even frustrated than before. So that may be something we can resuscitate. So this each voice of the Yijing, we can see in both sides, limited by time, but also give us some relevance of today. Number three, what is the Yijing today for us? I have you read my the other Yijing. I wrote a preface to the other Yijing, and in the introduction of my Tao companion to the Book of Changes, also I'm saying the same thing. I see a Yijing moment now, Okay, strangely enough, go back to Charles Dickens. The worst of time is the best of time. I think we are hating the worst of time, especially after the whole global system, the geopolitical system and economic system after the Second World War, especially the global capitalism since 1990s is collapsing. This is the worst of time, just like the giant wall should die. Okay, in that way, we are not living in a time of peace and stability. By contrast, we're living in the times of crisis and instability, tremendous alienation and frustration. But it is also this moment that the Yijing will shine, in the sense that it's a book about hope. It's a book about recreating our own life. You have to reorganize our life in order to make the world better. So this, to me, is the time that we have to read the Book of Changes, not only the original text, but also the commentaries. Not only the Chinese commentary, but also the Wilhelm Spain translation, all the other translation. Each of them is not a translation per se, it's also a revelation, a re-understanding of the idea of change in the context of the commentator or the translators. So this is the way that we can gather our wisdom from how different people throughout history, different part of the world, understand change and understand the challenge of change and also responding to the change. I think that is the duty of us, the mission of all the scholars today who are interested in the Book of Changes, to study it, not the text itself. Its study is a living revelations of what is happening today. And that, in a way, I agree with Wilhelm, even though he may be limited by his time, that the Book of Change is a living text. Whether or not it's only representing Chinese wisdom per se, that may be controversial. But the Yijing is a living text. It's never die. It's go on and on because of infusions of energy. Number three, the final one. What is the meaning of this Yijing moment? Is it one moment, or it is a daily moment? You can do a daily moment, but it in a way you keep vigilance about the circumstances and the serendipity of life. That's fine. But when I say the Yijing moment, is that we understand the urge to make predictions, important predictions, thereby you know where you're going in the next couple of years. Is that is that time, this momentous moment where you feel vulnerable, fear, and more, also anxious. That is the Yijing moment. Even today that we are already in the worst of time, not all the people feel that. Some even feel complacent, especially the parents of my students. They are complacent. My student may be more anxious, but the parent do not. So in that way, it's a different degree of people understanding of our times, under different assessments. When I say Yijing moment, that you know this is a critical time, critical juncture about that this crossroad, whereby your life will be changed. That is what I want to say. You can have Yijing small moment every day, but somehow, somewhere, just like in Carleo, you have a psychological outbreak, that you feel depressed. That is Yijing moment. You know that you are the fear comes out, so much so that you cannot control yourself. And that is what I hope that more people will come upon the Yijing moment sooner than later. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we are honored to have Professor Wen Haiming as our last commentator. Professor Wen Haiming received his PhD in comparative philosophy from the University of Hawaii in 2006. He is now a professor at the School of Philosophy, Renming University of China, and the Beijing Center. Professor Wen has taught classes in Chinese, including History of Chinese Philosophy, seminars on the Book of Changes, Songming Neo-Confucianism, Confucian Classics, Comparative Philosophy, etc. In English, classes include Introduction to the Book of Changes, Traditional Chinese Philosophy, Buddhism and Comparative Religions and Cultures. Professor Wen has published about 10 books and more than 70 journal articles in both English and Chinese, including more than 10 articles in English peer-reviewed journals like Asian Philosophy, Journal of Chinese Philosophy, Dao, a Journal of Comparative Philosophy, etc. He has been invited to present more than 100 papers in more than 20 countries all over the world. Now I give the floor to you, Professor Wen.
No, thank Paul for inviting me, and thank Professor Han for such a thought-provoking talk on philosophy of Yijing. I'm very honored to be invited to contribute to the Dao Companion on Yijing edited by Professor Han. The article I contribute is related to my new translation, Zhuhai, published by Shandong French Press last year, and related to my Zhuhai Mingyi, published by Peking University Press in 2019. And this book will be republished this year. In the book, I construct the theory of intentionality from the perspective of illuminating the intentionality of the Book of Changes, which is based on a new method of clear interpretation of the hexagrams and lines in the Book of Changes. So I share very similar views with some of you, and I studied with the 四海为学 and 四海为家. I think learning as our real home, learning at 4 Cs, the seasons changes, but your study on the Yijing never changes. So the pursuit of Tao is never changes. So philosophy is a philosophy of change, which means that Tao is always there, and that's our similar goal. So modern culture is just another development of ancient philosophical Tao. So my first question goes to how to interpret the philosophy of changes. So what kind of method we should use? I use phenomenology and philosophy of mind on intentionality to establish a new philosophy, Yijing. 1B, in the ancient times, he applied Wu, a concept of non-being. I apply Yi, intentionality, to interpret hexagram lines. So I'm wondering if we do some new interpretation on the Book of Changes, should we have some kind of actually clearly new stuff? That's one question. The second question is about the philosophy of language, about the changing yin-yang lines, for example, like Wu Xing paradigms, also related to correlative thinking. We always talk about it. So it's the image of the real world. It's another language beyond written words. The lines in the hexagrams is dynamic, is cyclic moving. So we can call it an ancient artificial intelligence. Just like today we talk about AI. It's a human soul, the kind of image related to the universal soul or universal Tao. So it's not just written text. So we both, I think we don't agree with those people who just treat the Book of Changes as some kind of words. So Tao is beyond words. So my second question is how to interpret ancient philosophy or language of Yijing in modern language. We have many different dimensions, but which way is proper? The book evolved as you just respond in different versions through different perspectives. So we might need a confusion work today to re-add it to a certain kind of standard version. I think Professor Han has a kind of way to contribute to this field. The third question, just like earlier, we talk about 世事如棋，局局新，生生之谓易. So there's no stable life. Living is changing, struggling towards future. Yijing philosophy is always about future. It is related to free will in Western philosophy. I agree we should overcome prejudice of definition, making decisions between different choices, now related to quantum metaphysics. So knowing your environment and understanding our subconsciousness intentionality is very important. It's better to have the feeling of fear and worry before things really happen. When fear and worry really come, it's too late. So philosophy of change is about cultivation or intentionality before things really concretized. So my third question goes to like this: in our AI times, change is so quickly and so accurate. Can ancient future telling in the Book of Changes still work? I think it's very important for us to realize that the modern physics, science, subject-object epistemology should go to ancient Chinese version, which means the continuity of subject and object is with a new epistemological paradigm. My fourth question is related to Yijing moment, which we just discussed with Robert. I think you emphasize that the Yijing moment is like career change, which means it has to be life change for serious change, but it should be everywhere. The Yijing moment is just every moment. Tao is there and changing is there. As long as we are living beings, we are in the Yijing moment. As you have this kind of reflection, I agree with Robert that constant vigilance is actually needed. Yijing moment is not any specific objective situation and time, but a subjective attitude of vigilance of all time and space, or a continual subject-objective understanding of our living situation at all times. Yeah. So this is my comment on Yijing moment, but it depends on whether you want to choose to respond. And thank you very much for your fascinating talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Professor Wen, okay, we are old friends, and I learned a lot from your books, especially your articles that contribute to the Tao Companion. The Zhou Yi Ming Yi is important. The idea about intentionality, and then the inner world, and then the decision making is a key point in understanding the philosophy of change in the Yijing. The question now I think you ask is what kind of new language you can use. Number one, in discussing this philosophy of change, and number two is what kind of new method. Especially, we are living in the AI age, the digital world. How do we do it? And number three is that this divination as a related Yijing moment, should it be a one-time shot, or should it be a continuous? The same question that Robin asked. I think both of you, Robin and Professor Wen, they actually pushed me to the corner. Now, okay, what do you mean by the Yijing moment or Yijing moments? Okay, how about that? I try to answer today. Okay. Number one, I think as I understand your writing, I'm one of your big fans of the Zhou Yi Ming Yi. Your argument, I share with you completely and deeply in depth to your writing, is that the Book of Changes, even in original form, in the images, 八卦六字卦, it's just symbols. So you may have visual symbols, you may have the linguistic symbol, you may be a philosophical symbol. They're all signs. But that's it. I think the root of your argument is brilliant. It's semiotics. Everything is semiotic. So in other words, our understanding of the Book of Changes, especially for those who studied only the text or focusing on the archaeological discoveries, they missed the point. All this is not Book of Changes. Book of Changes is a body of science to tell us about the unfolding of the universe. And also semiotics is that you say a pipe is not a pipe. So a sign is not, it's only a sign. Go back to Castilla, the philosophy of symbolic form is that a system of science is an artificial conventional system to attempt to understand the organic world. It's not the organic world. It does not represent it. It just mimic in the sense of allegorically indicating what it might appear. I think in that way, go back to one argument. This semiotics should be the core to understand it. So this dynamic language and visible images should be only a way to help us to understand the world. It's not the world itself. Now the methodology, if indeed I would say that the methodology should be, we should be deeply using the AI system to help us. I think this AI can be versatile, but it also a versatile in the sense that now the technology actually show the importance of the different platforms that we can allegedly understand the whole world through this technological system at the push of the button. But still, it's a semiotic, because the key point about today's application of the AI technology is the prompt engineering. In other words, it's the same thing as the observer and the world. We need something here in between. It may be a symbol, it may be a prompt engineering, and yet this world is not the world that we see through the AI. So in that way, we can use the AI to or the appropriate AI language, AI methodology into our discussions. And the language, the second question it asks is that we have to go back to this, we have to keep reminding our reader that the whatever language we use is a part of a semiotic orientation. So we are not, so the sound, so we don't take the signal, the signs as a reality. We take the sign as a allegory of what is going on. So that language is something that this semiotic should be grounded in a semiotic understanding of the world. And back to the Yijing moment, how about that? We can have Yijing moments, singular, or we can also have Yijing moments every second. How about that? For the general audience, I would say Yijing moments plural is applicable to everyone, anytime. But for scientific soul, who want to deep thinking about not only how to manage our life per se in like buying grocery and buying a commercial product or stocks and houses, but to engage in philosophizing and understanding the complexity and also the serendipity and fluidity of life. That's also a Yijing moment, a critical moment that we see how deeply we are superpositioned. That's what I'm trying to say is that we can have a challenge that we want to solve. There's a Yijing moment, and that can be many moments in a day. But there's also a critical point that you can see not only that you see how the life, the Tao. You have this how about that coming to the face with Tao. That you have this using Gautama to the non-being. That you don't have anything. You become powerless. You process nothing. That moment, I would say, there's a bigger. Okay, how about that Yijing moment with a small capital, and then a Yijing moment with a big capital. That is what I hope to argue, that if more people come to that point of coming to face with nothingness, that is death and life, using Heidegger issue, then we may have more people seeing the semiotic of the science. We can more see people incorporating AI into this book of changes. In other words, I hope that the study of book of changes can be both technical, okay, and meaningful for daily life, but also important to understand the nature of the universe. And if that is the moment, I would say one have to reaching the worst time. I only have in my own life, I can pinpoint 2 or 3 Yijing moments. The capital. I have many Yijing moments in my daily life, but there are 3 or 4 critical moments, including that crossing the bridge from Hong Kong to Zhuhai is one of my reason one. That call in all the question of who you are, and that is hope. I would say that the Yijing moment. How about that? Leave it this way: Yijing moment have 2 moments. One is small capital, small letter. One is capital letter. I hope I can resolve this question today. Thank you for both of you. I've been Robin and also Professor Wen. You pushed me to the corner. This is my major moment today. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And now I should open the floor for the audience. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Hello, Professor Hong. I'm Wang Pei, and now I'm at the University of Hong Kong. We met in Korea once. Just thank you for your talk today. I learned a lot. And I have one one little question that you mentioned Carleo a lot, but I just wonder, do you agree with all of his interpretation or reinterpretation of a Book of Change, or and also Richard Wilhelm, or is there anything that you disagree with them, both Young and Richard Wilhelm? Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, I'm presently writing articles on the Wilhelm Bain translation, which include Carleo. So I'm really how about that, driven by that. And your question you asked is very meaningful to me in the sense that how do I see this this approach, which is a combo. Richard Wilhelm learned from Lao Laixuan. So you have the Song Li Xue, especially Chengzhu Xue Pai in this understanding. You can read the Richard Wilhelm's introduction, the long one, where it discuss the philosophy of change and the symbol is basically the Chengzhu Xue Pai of the Song of the Qing period. It also have the philosophy part, which is also used in the especially in his commentary on his Wilhelm, when he did not only translate, he also annotate in some of the hexagram, especially Deng and Gen, Deng Gua and Ge Gua. He's not just translating; he's actually applying it to his time, the collapse of the economy, German economy in the Weimar Republic, and also the end of the Prussian Empire, and how to resuscitate the German aristocracy and imperial tradition during the interwar period. And then the Carleo actually put in, they actually connect together because of their common interest in Chinese alchemy, Neenan. That's why there's a book we have now, the Secret of Golden Flowers, which include translations of the Chinese text. But more important to me is the Carleo wrote comments about the alchemy and how the alchemy actually connect to his analytical psychology. And this became clear to us in Carrie Bain's translation. She's a German American. So in this biculture, she actually using very colloquial and elegant English to translate the German text into English. And many of these, because of translation, we have this psychological feel of the book of the hexagram because of her study with Carleo. So and of course, Carleo's key point is that it makes the Book of Changes a phenomenon in publication because of his forward. Few people read, even the hippies, they did not read the Yijing. They read the Carleo's translation, particularly the term synchronicity. So in this way, this is the context. I would say I respect the context because it involved the interwar Germany, especially the German crisis after the First World War, especially severely punished by French. So that is the time. And also Carleo too, as an Austrian, in Second World War, he was actually denied entry to United States because of his supposedly relationship to Nazi Germany, and he did not. So this is in this time. I would say I would appreciate the reinvention and interpretation of the Book of Changes in responding to the German-speaking community during the in between the First World War and Second World War, and Carrie Bain make it relevant for the Cold War America. But the limitation is that they're all limited by the time, just like us. Whatever we do in our writing today, we may say we have the best understanding of the Book of Changes or accurate understand the Book of Changes. It's actually self-deceiving. We understand it only because it's relevant to us in our times. So their time limited them. For example, they believe there's a one Chinese philosophy, one Chinese wisdom, one Chinese mind. Especially the Chinese mind was created by Carleo as a opposition to the Western mind. The Western mind is scientific, empirical, rational, and so on and so forth. And the Chinese mind is much more fluid, poetic and not scientific. Actually, science tries to make all the scientific too. So in that way, it's a simplifying a complicated issue. I would point it out as a scholar that they are limited by the time, but at the same time, they're also empowered by the time. So I would put it in this way, and here I would say remind ourselves that we are also limited and empowered by our time. So when in my writing, for example, on the I published an article in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and then my recent article in the Philosophy East and West is colored by time. I know that. Even my preface, because this is the only way. However, is the reason why I'm so driven by writing about the Book of Changes is that I see a connection between the Book of Changes to our times, the time that we are in collapse, and the time that at the collapse, the worst of time is also the beginning of the best of time. I see the future, even though I am in darkness. So this kind of seeing the light at the end of tunnel is very ambiguous and painful too, because the light is not yet coming to us. We are all circled by darkness. Actually, more dark one day, we are darker one day than the other. At the same time, I will know that 否极泰来, okay, the worst is the beginning of best. So I'm writing for the best because I live in the worst. I would say I would simplify with, I have a more and more empathy and sympathy with Richard Wilhelm, Carl Jung, and Haiming now than I were a couple of years ago, because I see the times similar to my times. Okay, I may not using the word Chinese mind, Chinese wisdom. I'm not going to do it. I will probably use change, and maybe here I can explain why I'm so obsessed in these last couple of years, repeatedly writing about the philosophy of divination. Is that I want people to really take action in making their plans for the future. When you're in darkness, you don't want to be absorbed and depressed by the darkness around you. You do fortune telling, you do future planning. Then you see light at the end of tunnel. You have to look forward in order to make your dark life, the darkness in life, become beautiful. That is what I'm just saying that I'll keep writing on this definition of philosophy in all my writing anyhow in the years to come. This is my limitation, but I'm also empowered by my times and your times. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Wang Pei, and thank you, Professor. I think we should conclude the session because the time is up. As we come to the end of this fascinating session, I'd like to extend my gratitude to our Professor Tze-ki for such a stimulating lecture, and our commentators Tyler Neenan, Dr. Bobby Carleo, and Professor Wen Haiming for their enriching perspectives. And thank you to our audience for their engagement and attention. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.